Let's make a Big Mac smash burger taco, but vegan. To start with, we're going to make our meat mixture, and I'm going to be putting that into a rather large bowl. We're going to use a half cup of TVP, quarter cup of chickpea flour, 2 tablespoons of psyllium husks, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar, and 1 tablespoon of tamari. Give that a mix. We also want to add some grinds of fresh cracked black pepper and about 3/4 of a cup of water. Better off to start with a little bit less than what you need and add it as you need it. I needed 3/4 of a cup for this exact batch, but you may need a little bit less. Sometimes you might need a little bit more. Just want to see it come together and form, into a mixture that doesn't look like soup. Okay, you want it to have a little bit of thickness to it, I guess is the easiest way to describe. But make sure everything gets moistened. The TVP will soak up that water pretty well. Also, if it sits for a while before you get to form the patties, you may want to add more water later and just mix it through again. Once that's all mixed through, we're going to set it to the side. Let that hydrate for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's just not a Big Mac without special sauce. So for this, 1/2 cup of cashews, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, 3 tablespoons of my favorite sauce, ketchup, and 1 tablespoon of mustard. I'm using Gulden Spicy Brown, but any regular yellow mustard should be just fine in this. Put that all in the blender along with a little bit of water, just about 2, maybe 3 tablespoons of water here, maybe a little bit more. And then we're going to take that for a spin. After blending for about 45 seconds to a minute, we have a lovely, rich sauce to put on our Big Mac smash tacos. I'm just going to put this into a container, but it's not quite done yet. Nope, we still have to add some diced onion. I'm using a tablespoon here, but pretty much diced onion to taste. I'm going to do like 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of diced onion. I probably could have done a little bit more. I would have been really happy with that. And some pickle relish. Now for that, I'm actually using 1 tablespoon of pickle relish, and it's the sweet pickle relish. You can use whatever kind you like, a little more, a little less, depending on your personal taste. And then give that a good mix before putting the lid on and putting it to the side. Now we're going to get to our cheese sauce. And for that, I'm going to use a pot. I'm going to put in a 1/2 cup of unsweetened soy milk, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1.5 tablespoons of tapioca flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder and garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and this is more to taste. You can leave it out if you really want to, and a teaspoon of olive juice. This is literally just the brine from black olives or Kalamata olives. Then we want to get a whisk and whisk this up. You do not want clumps. You do not want anything dry. You want this to be homogeneous. And once it's mixed up, you want to get out your cooktop, or I suggest doing it on your stove, and turning it up to about medium heat. I'm going 3 out of 5 on my cooktop, and I may adjust that as we go. Put the pot on there and stir. Please don't walk away. Please don't leave this at all. Keep on mixing. Now, the whisk really just doesn't cut it anymore. Instead, I'm moving to a silicone spatula. That way I can get into all those corners and keep this moving. It's going to get thick. With a whisk, it's going to stick in the whisk and it's not going to come out nice, and it just makes for a mess. So use the rubber spatula or silicone spatula and just keep moving. It will happen quickly, but it does take a few minutes for it to fully heat up. After a few minutes, you start to see some lumps forming. It gets a little thicker. See just the very edge of that spatula starting to show it. Still needs a couple more minutes. Now you can really see some of those lumps forming. Keep mixing. Do not stop. Do not walk away. And notice I'm turning the temperature down just a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite that hot. It'll happen much too quickly and could burn. This is that tapioca starch at work, though. What it does is it gives it a nice stretchy texture, and if you let this set, it will set up like a cheese. I generally use a little bit more tapioca to make a real cheese, but this is more like a cheese sauce, so it's very appropriate for this kind of dish. And you can see it's really coming together now. And then we just want to set that to the side and let it cool. And these are tacos after all. So I'm using Mission whole wheat carb balanced tacos. Here's the nutrition information. They're very low in calories, very low in fat, and they're whole wheat. So I like these a lot. I don't worry about the fact that they're carb balanced. That's not why I like them. They do tend to stick together pretty good though. So you want to be careful when you're trying to get them out of the package. Now we'll grab that meat mixture, divide that as best we can. Looks like I should be able to get 3 out of this. And I'm just going to put some of that onto the tortilla and start mashing it down and pressing it out into a roughly burger shape. It's probably best to just use your hands. I figured that out in just about 12 seconds here. There we go. Using the best tools you got. Get your hands in there. It's okay to get a little dirty. Play with your food. It's fun. And if this doesn't come out exactly circular, no one but you will ever know, based on the way it gets served. I do try to get it thin though. I don't want more than 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of this meat mixture because you're only cooking it on one side. So it gets a little difficult to cook fully through without crisping up the tortilla too much when we do get to cooking, which you'll see in a minute. Notice I'm staying about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from the edges. That's okay. That's what I want so that it doesn't fall over the sides. Now I'm going to be using one of my carbon steel pans. This one's pretty well seasoned, and I'm just going to turn the heat to, I think that's about 2 out of 5. I want to get a little bit of a crust on the outside, but I also want to cook it through without overcooking that tortilla. Once our pan is up to temperature, somewhere in the 350 or so range is pretty good for me. I'm going to, this is one of the few times I like to do it, but I'm going to use a little bit of a spritz of oil in there. This happens to be canola oil, so it can handle the high temperatures. And then we put our tortilla in face down. Just got to kind of commit and flip it over and then give it a little bit of a press here and there. You'll hear some sizzle. That's very important. This is going to take about 5 minutes. Don't be tempted to keep messing with it. You want to let it sit and form a crust. Okay, now I want to start separating it from the pan. I'm just working that spatula all around the edges. It does stick a little bit. That's why we had to use the oil. Otherwise, it would just burn right to that pan. Then get it out of there, flip it over, and put it on the plate. You can see we got a little bit of char mark. That's what we're looking for. It is cooked. See how the color has changed. It's brown all around, but the char tastes good. Now let's assemble our taco. All right, so I'm going to take some of that cheese sauce and see how it's nice and thick and just put it right on there. And you want to spread it around as best you can. Get a nice even coverage. And you don't want this too thick, otherwise it just really takes over the entire dish. You want a cheese flavoring. You want it to be there, but you don't want it to overtake everything. A Big Mac is a blend of flavors and the perfect balance of several things. Then we move on to the special sauce. Now, don't skimp on this. In this particular taco, I probably could have put double the amount of sauce on there that I did. I mean, look at that little piddly amount of sauce. It needs a lot more sauce. What self-respecting Big Mac does not have? Pickles. So we're going to take some pickles. I think 4 is probably about the right number for this particular application. And I'm just going to space them out. You can use more if you want to. You can leave them out if you want to. This is your smashed taco, and you can have it however you like. And then some shredded lettuce. And for this, get kind of generous. I mean, there should be quite a bit of lettuce on there. I mean, tacos do the shredded lettuce thing, so do Big Macs. So, hey, get in there with it. And now, here we are. Time to wrap my hands around this as best I can and take a bite. If you used to be a fan of the Big Mac and you kind of miss all those flavors, but you don't want all those extra calories and you certainly don't want to eat animal products, this is a great alternative. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bistro.